Which Dremel do you choose, the Dremel or the RYOBI Dremel? We'll take a closer look at both when we get back. I'm Tim Johnson. You're watching Shop Tool Reviews. We understand that the Dremel name is actually a brand name, but it's also typically the name that anyone gives a rotary tool when they see it. So that's why we used it. Now we'll try to clarify things moving forward. And what we have is the new RYOBI ONE+ HP, which tells us it runs on their ONE+ 18-volt battery platform, their new rotary tool, and we have the Dremel 9100, which is their flex shaft rotary tool that plugs into the wall and also has a foot pedal. Now there's a lot of similarities between these two units. There's also quite a few differences. One of the things that really sticks out to us is the fact that both of these have aluminum handles. Also, both of them turn 20,000 plus RPM. Now, before we talk too much more, let's dive in, take a closer look at these. Let's talk about the differences and the similarities. We'll even use them, then we'll come back. We'll talk about what we thought of them, as well as pricing, warranty, and anything else that sticks out at us. Today, we have a fight of the Dremel tools. Yes, Dremel is a name brand of a tool, but also typically the name of a rotary tool because people are used to using a Dremel when it comes to a rotary tool. Now, RYOBI has released their own rotary tool or Dremel style tool, and this is specifically the model number PBLRT01B. B is for bare tool. You can also get it in the kit form, which would be the 01K1, I believe, which would come with a 2 amp hour battery and a charger. Now this is a flexible shaft design. In other words, we have the motor here in the head unit with a flexible shaft, and then we have a handle where you attach your bits and so forth. This is a solid aluminum handle here, much like the Dremel has. Now RYOBI also has some handheld rotary tools, and they even have a hobby station that has the flex shaft but still has the plastic handle. So this is kind of the step up into more of a pro category for somebody that's doing this seriously, whether they're doing jewelry work, whether they're doing just crafting, maybe even small engine stuff. Depending on what you're doing, this is a step up definitely to their plastic handled machine. Now, full disclosure here, RYOBI sent me this for free. Now, the interesting thing is they also sent me the Dremel. So very rarely does a tool company send me something and send the competitor's model, and not just the competitor's model, but the competitor's best model, and say, hey, compare them. Let us know what you think. Let the people know what you think about it. So I thought that was very interesting, and I really appreciate it. So again, full disclosure, both these were sent to us at no charge, obviously, and but they wanted our honest information, which is what we're going to give anyway. We're always going to give our honest feedback on these machines. Now, this is something I actually understand a bit. I remember, even as a youngster, walking into the machine shop and always seeing, it wasn't a Dremel, but it was I believe it was Fortum. And Fortum, which looked a lot like this. In fact, the handle here on the Dremel looks identical to the Fortum. I don't think Fortum owns Dremel or Dremel owns Fortum, but anyway, just interesting that their handle looks identical to the old Fortum. Anyway, I remember seeing those. I remember seeing the machinists use those, even with their big expensive machinery. They had the motor here with the flex shaft, and it would hang up, and they would use their small burr bits, carbide bits, and so forth to do their carving into metal, aluminum, whatever material they were working on, especially if they had to do small markings, things like that. So right off the bat, we can see that number one, the Dremel is powered by a cord. It's a pretty heavy little motor here, which really shouldn't matter because we're going to hang that up and use it. As far as laying it on the table, I'm sure you could do that as well, but it's probably just not going to sit as well as it would hanging from a hook like it's supposed to. Now we have a flexible shaft. Looks to be about 3 foot long. Let's measure that. So from tip, looks about 42 inches long, the shaft all the way to the tip here. So the shaft itself, has about 36 inches, and then we have about a 6-inch handle overall. And here's the cool thing about this handle is if you're, again, doing this professionally, and let's say you've got a cutting wheel on this handle, you can just grab the whole handle and separate it and grab another handle that may have a buffing wheel on it or a sanding wheel on it or you know, a drum sander or whatever, but you can have different bits and different handles and quickly just change these out within a couple of seconds rather than actually exchanging the bits out. So that's a cool design here that, again, I remember from the Fordham machines had the same thing, and as I mentioned, pretty much identical handheld unit here. Pretty heavy there to hold in the hand, but you want some weight there so it battles against any grinding, sanding, or deburring or buffing that you're going to be doing, polishing, whatever it is you're doing. Now the cool thing about the Dremel is you have a power cord, obviously, that plugs into the wall, but then you also have a foot pedal. And this foot pedal basically just goes in line with the power cord. And so you take the power cord and you plug it into the foot pedal, and then you plug the foot pedal into the wall, and then that basically controls your power. And by the way, this machine, so we just have an on-off switch here, and then we have the foot pedal. This machine is 0 to 23,000 RPM. It turns a lot of RPM, but 0 to 23,000, and this foot pedal goes in between. Now, the one thing I dislike about the foot pedal is once you hang this unit up, and we'll show you here in a moment, the cord is kind of short, so it's almost, you either have to be right on an electrical outlet, or you'll have to be running an electrical extension cord to be able to run your foot pedal, because in my case, it's not long enough to reach to the floor without that extension cord. Anyway, regardless, just wanted to tell you that. But you can plug this directly in, just use the power switch, which would be at maximum 23,000 RPM, or utilize the foot pedal, which is a nice perk to have, or a nice option or accessory to have, which I believe just comes with the Dremel. It does come with the Dremel. I don't think I mentioned what the model number is on the Dremel. The Dremel, this is the model 9100, and I believe it is their best or kind of highest industrial use model in the 9100, and comes with the flex shaft, the handle, and a few accessories as well. We'll show you that here in one moment. Now, when it comes to the RYOBI, as I mentioned, this is the PBLRT01. It would be B if you wanted the bare tool, or the T01 K1, which would be the kit with the 2 amp hour battery and the charger with the tool itself. It also comes with a few accessories. We'll go over that here in one moment. Now, you'll see the difference right away on the RYOBI in the fact that we have a dial here rather than just a switch, and rather than just a foot pedal. However, I got to add on to that as well. We have an on-off switch. Obviously, it's going to turn the power on, turn the power off. But as far as plugging in, we don't have to do that because it runs on the OnePlus 18-volt platform. So put our battery in, and now just off the 18-volt battery, we can sit this on the tabletop. We can hang it on screw hooks and kind of hard mount it to the wall if we wanted to do that, or to a pegboard. And we could also take this hook, open it up, and now hang that on the wall as well. Makes it very easy regardless of your mounting condition or how you want to run this. You have several options to do so. We also have a handle holder here once you've got it mounted on the wall, or even here on the desk, and you could put the handle there and that's going to hold it for you, or if it's holding up right on the wall, it'll hold it for you there as well. Now, as the Dremel was 23,000 RPM, the max on this is 25,000 RPM. Will be the max all the way down to 5,000. And then, as I mentioned, I have one other perk here. You can run a foot pedal on this. Right here, written very small, it says foot pedal, so you can turn the dial to foot pedal. And then this little port right here is where you will plug in your foot pedal. So you won't have to have power running to the foot pedal, just a small wire here. And then you can control that from the foot pedal as well. We do not have the foot pedal yet. Looking forward to getting that, and we'll try that as well. But as I mentioned, we have yet to get that. This is running off a brushless motor from the 18-volt OnePlus battery, and then a flexible shaft as well. Looks a lot like if you've ever seen an old speedometer cable. So pretty much, I don't know if that's 1/4 inch or what's, flexible shaft, and it's got a square on the end of it, and we can pull that out if we wanted to, re-grease it from time to time. I'm sure it would help. And then it just goes right in here, and then we thread it on. Now on the opposite end, we have an aluminum handle, which again's got decent weight on it, just like on the Dremel. Probably a little bit lighter, but still, you know, feels comfortable in the hand. Also feels like you've got enough weight there. It's not going to give you too much feedback as you're grinding, sanding. It's going to stay in place. Also, we have a keyless chuck here. That's another thing. We didn't cover that in the Dremel. On the Dremel here, it looks like we have a drill bit chuck, which is exactly what it is. So you need a drill bit key. So here's a key right here that we have to use to actually change out bits on this. So you've got to get it, make sure you get it right here into that spot, and then you have to loosen that up, change out your bits, tighten it up. So one good thing about that is we're not limited to just an 1/8 inch shaft. We can put pretty much anything, I think, up to I think 3/16 or maybe even more than that, and put in larger bits if we want to, or even smaller bits, and be able to close that down. But the negative on that is the fact that you do have to use a drill bit chuck to actually, or a drill bit key to actually close up that chuck, and you have to get it in the right spot and so forth. Now, just like the handle on the Dremel, the RYOBI also, we can just pull right off. So again, with the RYOBI, if we're doing this a lot and we want to have different handles with different bits on them, rather than having to change out the bits, we can just quickly pull off these handles. So just pull it off and change it out. Makes it really nice, really easy. No buttons to press, anything, just pull that off and then reinsert it. Now this button here will actually lock the spindle, and then we can use the keyless chuck here to replace bits. So that is another perk here, that we don't have to use a wrench. If it's overly tight, we can put a wrench on that nut. But if you just cinched it down with your hand, then we can also remove it or loosen it by hand, and then retighten it by hand by holding down the button to lock that arbor, to lock the spindle, and then cinch this down on the actual chuck. We'll show that here in one moment. Now let's actually hang these up and use them a bit. Okay, so we'll hang the Dremel here, and we'll go ahead and turn that on. And then on the RYOBI, open up the hook and hang that as well. So again, kind of nice there that we have this holder there that we can swap to either side, or even have multiple ones, and we can have different handles in there if we're already using it and we wanted to swap out handles, or just mount it wherever we want to. But the nice thing is it has the holder right there to hold our handle. Okay, so the Dremel we have turned on, and we've got our foot pedal here. We'll keep right here on the desk. And then on the RYOBI, we've got turned off. We'll turn that on here in one moment. Okay, before we get started actually using this, I wanted to point out what we actually get with the Dremel. With the Dremel, here's the accessories that came with it. Little drill bit pack, which is kind of nice. What's that? Looks like a 7-piece drill bit pack, and then some little sanding drums, a rubber drum, a couple of carbide tips, a stone tip. So a few different pretty cool accessories here to use with the Dremel, and then a hanger, so you can actually screw that to the wall, and then your unit actually hangs on that hook there. So that comes with the Dremel. And then the RYOBI came with a cool little kit like this, which gives you a few different options. You get a couple of cutting wheels. You get the actual arbor, which is like a quick connect arbor for connecting the cutting wheel. We'll show you that here in one moment. Some large and small sanding drums, and then even some polishing wheels with jeweler's rouge as well. So this is jeweler's rouge if you want to practice up and do some jewelry polishing, or polish some aluminum, or whatever it is you're wanting to polish. There you go, you can do so. We get a wrench, wire brush, a couple of stone discs, so several different things, and then even another collet and a regular style. So we get the collet insert, and and then the regular style collet nut that you would use with a wrench, and a little harder to use with your fingers with that small diameter, but this is the larger one that has the nut on the end, as well as it's a larger diameter, so it's easier to grasp and put more torque on to change out bits. So that's what comes with the different units. Let me point out one thing that right away, the first time I turned these machines on, and this is honest feedback, just telling you like it is. So this is the RYOBI, this is the Dremel. Let me show you something. So I've got the Dremel on. Here is my foot pedal. You can hear that vibration of it kind of jumping on the table a little bit. And that's the same thing you feel in your hand. I'm not going to lie and say that it's like uncomfortable, but you definitely feel that little bit of vibration or feedback in your hand while you're holding this. And it being aluminum doesn't help things. Obviously, that's not going to absorb any vibrations like a plastic handle would. But again, we don't want that. Just telling you, there is a bit of feedback in this handle just off the vibration of the tool. Now let me turn on the RYOBI. So that's 25,000 RPM. So you feel that vibration in the hand here as well. However, it's probably half or even a quarter as much as the handle here. Now, you really can't hear that in the sound, but I wanted you to hear that you can definitely hear that there is some vibration or some feedback in the handle. But the RYOBI is much smoother, and I say much smoother. It's probably, again, half or a quarter as much as in the Dremel. Neither one of them are bad, but it's just one of those things that I recognized right away, so I wanted to pass that along, if you will. Now let's put in a cutting disc really quick. And by the way, this is a pretty cool little, you see the disc rather than just having a hole here, it's got that funky little hourglass shape. And so you grab this and you thread that down, and then you put that funky hourglass shape through there, and you give it a quarter turn, and then you tighten that nut down, and that's what locks down the disc in the tool. Now I can push my arbor lock, tighten this down, ensure that it's in there. And by the way, you never want to bottom out your shaft of these rotary tools down into the tool, because if you do, you'll never be able to get them out if they ever get locked in there tight. Because that's one of the things, if it's ever stuck and you loosen it, it's still stuck, you can push it in and that will release that collet, and then you can pull it out. This does not have a safety collet. Not going to dig into that, but basically a safety collet requires you to loosen it twice to be able to remove the tool. Got a whole video on that, but this one does not have that. So I've got a cutting tool in there, and let's see here, we'll cut a little, looks like that's probably aluminum, maybe a small piece of stainless, and then aluminum angle as well. So no problem there. Again, remember that you've got a cutting wheel on here that's turning at 25,000 RPM. Also make sure your cutting wheels are matched for that. This is actually rated at 35,000 RPM, so we're fine as far as cutting at that speed, but always keep your face out of the direct path. Wear a face shield as well, eye protection, because if this comes apart, that's coming at very fast speeds at your head. So cutting, obviously, that's going to be smaller stuff. As far as grinding and sanding, that's probably going to be the majority of what you'll be doing with a tool like this, or even wood crafting. Now here's a small drill bit that comes with the RYOBI kit. Turn the speed down just a bit. So pretty cool. Very easy to drill in your woods as well as even your aluminum, things like that. Obviously, you're getting into big steel stuff. That's not going to be the case. I'm going to change this out to a little ball mill. And that's exactly what it sounds like. It's a little ball, carbide ball tip. And this is great for, I'll show you here in a second. So we can do wood carving. So that's not real hard to do, but just a little little ball tip there. It's great for that. Also, what it's great for, like this piston here. So when we took this piston out, we took a little dimple and a little punch, and we punched in 6 little punches on the rod cap and 6 little punches on the rod itself to tell us that came out of cylinder number 6. With a tool like this, we can take it, and then we could even, so we've marked it for number 6, and then this is the front of the motor. We have the mark on the piston. If we wanted to mark the rod the same way, we could even put a little arrow here if we wanted to. Telling us that's the front of the motor or front of the piston. So then we know how to put that rod back on there if we don't understand how to do that already. So we can mark motor parts. We can carve wood. I'm going to put this wire brush on here. One thing that I grew up doing, my first thing with a Dremel tool, was messing with nitro-powered RC cars and boats. In fact, this is one of the little outboard motors, one of the little K&B 3.5 cc motors that was on one of my first boats that I built probably as a young teenager. And then, of course, you know, after getting them running, I wasn't happy with fast, so I wanted it faster. And I started using a Dremel to actually port, polish the exhaust. I would take and open up there's a cylinder liner in here. I would change the port timing on the exhaust as well as on the intake. I would open up the exhaust ports here on the lower unit of the outboard, and sometimes mess things up, but still, you know, it was one of those things that where you could use a tool like this to do that. And even on like something like this oxidized aluminum, so you could really start cleaning that up and even get it to a polish and put your polishing wheel on it. And then like the props as well. So a really cool little unit here from RYOBI. Is the Dremel nice? Sure, absolutely. It works fine. I will say that the Dremel feels a little bulkier to use. Not bad whatsoever. Works really well. But as far as the handle, it's a little heavier and a little bulkier than the RYOBI is. They both, you know, will slide off, and we can change those out if we want to. Or if you're not using it that much and you just change out your bits, you can do that also. But both of them do the same. I would just say the RYOBI feels a little more comfortable. Also, the nice thing is on a tool like this, a lot of times just the accessibility of being able to move it to where you're working is a lot easier than maybe moving the product you have to the tool itself. You know, whether you're taking this out in the field and doing some work, or whether you're just moving it around the shop, moving it in a different room, whatever, it is nice to just be able to pick this up, move it wherever you need to go, swap out the battery. We've been doing all this, still haven't dropped a cell at all. I've even used it before now. So seems like you're getting all of the benefits of the full-blown Dremel tool in this RYOBI, and this is battery powered, and you haven't lost any power. At least we haven't noticed a power drop or a power difference in what we've been using. I think this is a 2 amp or a 1/5 horse motor, and not sure what the RYOBI is, but we do have a brushless motor in here. Nice that we also have a dial here, because one thing I noticed on the Dremel instructions, some of the tools said use at 15,000 RPMs. Well, all we have is an on-off, and we know that wide open's 23,000, and we don't know where we're at as far as RPM. Now, it's probably not a huge deal, but just in knowing your tools and knowing your different bits, you do have to watch your RPM from time to time. So it is nice to have that dial right here to be able to dial in what RPM, or at least RPM range we're looking for. But I will tell you, I think RYOBI's done a great job at breaking into this sector and getting a true professional handle, professional flex shaft, and doing it with battery power, making it much more not only economical, because we'll talk about the price here in a moment, but also convenience by being able to move your tool around where you need it. Now the bottom line is both of these tools work really well, especially for what they're meant to do. Now we love the fact that the Dremel has a foot pedal, but we don't like the fact that we really can't dial in the RPM that we need. We also love the fact that the RYOBI comes with a foot pedal, but we've yet to use the foot pedal, and we look forward to actually getting that. But the dial does allow us to dial in exactly the RPM that we need or that we want. So we have an on-off switch as well as a dial, and we can also plug in a foot pedal. There does seem to be less vibration in the handle on the RYOBI versus the Dremel. And then getting really down to the brass tacks of both of these can probably be used for about anything that one can do, the other can do. The bottom line is the RYOBI is just going to be that much more handier because it's running on a battery and doesn't seem to burn up the battery a lot. So there's not a lot of torque or a lot of drag on this tool. So it's going to run quite a while on a battery. So you can now take this to wherever you need to go. So rather than taking something to the workbench where you always have the Dremel hanging, you can now put this on a work surface, hang it from a hook, what have you, but take it to your work and do whatever work you need to do. So we think that makes it a lot handier. Also, this is going to sell with the kit, is going to be $179 with a 2 amp hour battery and a charger. Now, bare tool, I'm not sure what it's going to sell for. I would assume probably $129 to $159 because they have a lower model unit with a plastic handle that sells for $99 for the bare tool. So again, I would assume that this will sell for $129 to $159. We'll put that in the description as soon as we hear back from RYOBI on that bare tool pricing. But as we mentioned, for the kit, you're looking at $179. We also don't know what the foot pedal is going to sell for. We would assume somewhere between 30 and 50 bucks on that too. Now the Dremel actually sells, I think you can actually get this for like $239 for the Fortiflex kit, the Dremel 9100 kit that comes with the accessories, the foot pedal, and the unit. So a little bit more expensive than the RYOBI, but really and truly, once you add in the battery and the foot pedal, you're probably going to look at about the same price. We love the fact that we have disconnect handles on both of these units. So the RYOBI and the Dremel has these handles that disconnect and connect very easily. As we mentioned, then you could have your bits already set up in different handles and just swap these out as you need to. You'll see a lot of machinists and jewelers, things like that, where they've got the setups and they'll have multiple handles sitting there and just be able to swap those out versus actually swapping out the bits. So really great units. We love the RYOBI. We love the fact that it's handy, that it's battery powered. But again, the Dremel is going to do a great job as well. Look for the RYOBI to come out in April or May, so sometime in the next month or two, this should release. And again, we'll put all that information in the description along with a link to it. You'll find it at Home Depot as well as homedepot.com. And RYOBI is releasing a whole line of different rotary tool products, crafting products, and so forth. This is a part of the ONE+ HP line, so that tells us we get the brushless motor and all the high performance goings on with the HP line, so we know we're getting the most out of everything on the ONE+ battery platform when we get an HP tool. We're excited about this tool. We're also going to use it quite a bit here in the shop. Again, the model number on this is the PBLRT01 B if you want the bare tool, or the K1 if you want the kit. Also, keep track of us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you don't mind, would you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't done so already? And by all means, if you hated our video, then give us a thumbs down. But would you let us know in the comments why? Have a great day and keep smiling.